start with you, Fred. You know, I mean, what was the biggest mission or the most important thing that ever happened to you while you were with the 304th?
Oh boy, well, I started back in the H-34 days, and so had a few missions there where we had to actually parachute the PJs in even at 4,000 feet because the H-34 wouldn't hover out of ground effect. And there was, it seems like almost every mission there was something different. Either it was a communication problem or a command and control problem. A lot of communication problems with local law enforcement, not being able to talk to people and having to work things out. Several missions where I was in the ops center were kind of like that, where the one over in Washington County where the sheriff on FM was talking to somebody who was talking to somebody else who was talking to an airliner who was talking back to ops on VHF because the helicopters were UHF only, and finally located the survivor. And it was always nothing seemed to be straightforward except like missions where you went someplace, picked somebody up, and took them to a hospital. Of course, Mount St. Helens is, I'm sure, a big one in everybody's mind because that was a goat rope right from the very beginning. We had no idea where we were going or who we were going to pick up, and everybody sorted that out over the next 3 days or so. That's that's brief enough.
Yeah. I was first there in 1973 in the 304th, and I was on the H-34s just for a couple of rides. That's during the Pat Riggs days, and what was his name? Stivers? Larry Stivers. Yeah. And then there was McGriff. Was it McGriff or something like that? I don't know.
I know who you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was Griffin.
But anyway, yeah, just for a few rides on that.
That was the period in which H-34 went down doing water hoists at night.
Yeah.
In Columbia River.
Yeah.
Yeah, just before I got there.
Dave Mullen, we're talking about the mission up there on Mount Hood when I was with you, when I think it was 7 kids froze to death, and that was in 1990.
No, that was 1980. I was up there. I think that was 87.
Oh, was it? Was it that long ago? Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. But I don't know. We were on the bird that I was on. We're on the other side of the mountain, maybe Redmond, and we got a call saying that there was a bunch of people lost or up on Mount Hood.
Was that the Episcopal school thing?
Yeah, it was. It was. And we kind of looked at each other like, well, it's impossible. Maybe it was like 15 or 20 people were lost up there, and we're thinking, well, that's really crazy. We got the wrong information because there wouldn't be that many people lost at the same time. Well, I don't know if you were with me that day.
I think I was, and I was with I think of the other pilot.
Wasn't Sullivan?
Charlie
Jones. Charlie Jones, okay.
And we were flying an N model, I think. And we set it down. We eventually got up there, landed at Timberline, just for thought somebody could tell us something.
Yeah.
So we went up on the mountain. We landed at Timberline parking lot. It was probably 50 to 60 mile an hour winds. When we landed up on a ridge, it was 80 miles an hour. And I remember Charlie asked me to get on the controls with him, which I probably would have anyway, because it was kind of scary. And
yeah.
When we set it on the ridge, we could look at the airspeed on the gauge, and it's 80 knots.
Yeah, yeah.
So that tells you something right there.
I was with you on that flight when we were going up the mountain sideways. I was picking up one rock at a time because I mean, the sky was just as white as the ground at that point in time, and it was just windier than heck. And I'll never forget that. And then I don't know if I was up, I can't remember. I think I was up there the next day also. And I think that the hardest thing, the biggest thing that I can remember is going back to the lodge and facing the parents of these kids that were up there lost. And you know, they were very desperate at that point in time, asking us what we thought, if we thought we'd get up there, or when it would be. And that was the hard part about that.
I remember Charlie Jones on that one saying, his eyes about that big around, saying, we had the collective full down and we were still going up 1,000 feet a minute.
Huh.
When the winds were coming up the slope.
Sounds like Charlie, yes.
Yeah. He'd never experienced anything like that before.
Yeah.
Most of us had never done that either.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
It is hard to pick out a single mission and say that was the mission. You know, they were all important, and for one reason or another. For the Episcopal one, it was because there were so many victims involved.
Yeah,
for the Mount St. Helens, we all read about that in the newspapers. But I remember all the way back to when Bruce Wood was the chief of maintenance, and I was just a co-pilot in the H-34, and we actually dropped PJs on Mount Hood. I forget why. I think it was a light aircraft crashed up there. We couldn't have hovered, so that was the only other choice.
You were in H-model at that time?
H-34.
H-34.
Oh, okay. Oh, H-34. Okay, that's going back there.
I thought it was a great aircraft compared to the H-19.
Yeah. So you're talking like 71 or 72 or something like that, huh?
Well, they still had to be, in 73, we were ferrying them to the boneyard.
Yeah, yeah.
And then we already had Hueys. People were getting Huey treated.
Yeah. Well, hey, Jim, you were on the 34s, weren't you?
Just, I think I had probably only 3 or 4 flights. Then we got the Hueys. And that would have been June of 73, July. I went out to the 304th to satisfy, he was an active duty pilot.
Matt Helms.
No, the next guy. We lived next door to each other in a duplex, had 2 little kids, and he kept on bugging me, come fly with us. So finally, after a year, I said, this is enough of this. I'm going to go out there and stop him from, every time I came home in the morning from work, he was out there. Larry James. And so I went out there. They took me out to the hangar. They were changing, I think, a rotor head and blades on an H-34. Pat Riggs and Larry Stivers. And 4 years later, with grease under my fingernails, and I said more than I should have, I went in and let's see, who was the ops officer then? Going to school for a lawyer.
Bill Hughes, yeah.
Raise your hand. I signed up, went home, told my wife, I'm in the reserves. And the following Monday, I flew in an H-34.
Okay.
Physical, flight gear, everything in barely a week. And I was the only engineer on board. I thought, how does this work?
Yeah.
They were concerned about the droop stops on shutdown. And probably the most interesting thing I've done in all the 16 and a half years of flying was in St. Helens.
St. Helens, yeah.
Third day we went to pick up I think a newspaper guy that got way up there and couldn't get out. Bagger was my PJ, one of my PJs. And we had to kind of fly him into the ground because the dust came up so fast. And when we picked him up, we had an end model, very slow cable. And the stuff came up around us, you couldn't see anything. And the most exciting time, I think, was I had my gloved hand on the cable and it was going back towards the tail rotor. And I don't know what I said to start with, but I think the second time, and I don't know who was flying, I said just grab a hold of a handful of collective and go straight up because we're going to kill them guys. We're going to fly them right into the trees. And the aftermath was we did take off a limb about that big, according to Bagger. And the little stainless steel ring on the where the cable swivels, was bent down about 30 degrees. And Bagger thought he was dead. We flew right into the trees. Couldn't see anything.
Oh, jeez.
So everything came out good. So somebody told me, well, every rescue is the same. And I looked at him and I said, you've never been flying, boy. You have not been flying. Everything is different. Everyone there's little things that go on that, you know, that's what you train for. Right?
Yeah.
React.
Well, Fred,
be ahead of the game.
Fred, didn't you crash a 34? Wasn't that you and Pat Riggs?
Yeah, it was Larry James and Pat and I were ferrying one of the last ones down to the boneyard, and we had spent the night at Klamath Falls, and it was a below freezing night, and next morning we were kind of scraping ice and getting the windshields free of ice, and took off for, I think we were going to Beale, and just about on the north flank of Mount Shasta, we had a pitch up. Larry James, being an old fixed wing guy, cleverly stuck in tail rotor to make it roll, entered the auto rotation, and started circling down whatever rudder. I think we were going to the left, and every time we try to pull collective, it would start pitching up again. Pat Riggs got off the primary hydraulic system, and it didn't seem to be as bad, but the mountain was coming up towards us, and so continued in auto rotation. And when we were at the right angle, we didn't have to pitch up. We just pulled collective and kept the nose up, the nose keeping itself up. Entered auto rotation, finished the auto rotation, hit the ground, chopped off a few oak trees, and those guys were out of the aircraft so fast that I hadn't even finished shutting it down.
You chopped off. What about you, Dave? Have you ever been, I'm trying to remember, were you involved in any of the aircraft accidents or incidents that we had?
Had one.
I was like, which one was it?
We were at, down around Klamath Falls, and we were training some drug agents for the federal government, and we were practicing picking them up on a long line or on a bell line, and we picked it up just to where, before we got them off the ground, and the drive shaft failed. The splines in the drive shaft.
Oh, okay.
It's like an engine failure. I remember saying engine failure, but that was technically incorrect. The same thing happens. You don't have any power. And, the rotors are still turning for a little while. And we fell about 100 feet, I guess.